Welcome to Underwire History. In 1351, a new kingdom is born in the heart of Southeast Asia. The Ayutthaya Kingdom, as it would come to be known, will play a pivotal role in shaping the region's history for centuries to come. Founded by King Uthong, also known as Ramathibodi I, this new state seeks to establish itself as a major power in the region. A key factor in its success is its strategic location at the confluence of three rivers, the Chao Phraya, the Lopburi, and the Passak. This natural advantage enables trade and cultural exchange with neighboring kingdoms and cities. But politics and geography are only part of the equation. The Ayutthaya Kingdom's most significant innovation is its adoption of Theravada Buddhism as the state religion. Theravada, a tradition that emphasizes individual interpretation of Buddhist scriptures, is a radical departure from the more rigid Mahayana orthodoxy prevalent in China at the time. The choice to adopt this new faith has far-reaching implications for the kingdom's governance and social hierarchy. The Ayutthaya Kingdom is established by King Uthong Ramathibodi I in modern-day Thailand. He begins to propagate Theravada Buddhism as the state religion, unfolded through interacting constraints rather than one isolated trigger. Decision-makers operated within institutional limits, and each response narrowed the next available option. The evidence points to compounding risk rather than a single dramatic cause. That causal chain becomes clearer when incentives, governance, and timing are read together. The Ayutthaya Kingdom's adoption of Theravada Buddhism was not a sudden conversion. Rather, it emerged from the confluence of internal dynamics, such as the rise of an influential monastic class. This group promoted a more individualistic interpretation of Buddhist scriptures that resonated with local power holders. At the same time, external factors like trade and cultural exchange also contributed to the growth of Theravada influence in the region. Theravada's emphasis on individual interpretation allowed for greater flexibility and adaptability in governance and social hierarchy. The kingdom's leaders likely saw this as a strategic advantage, enabling them to respond more effectively to changing circumstances. This new faith became a unifying force, transcending ethnic and regional differences within the kingdom. However, it also created tensions with neighboring kingdoms that adhered to Mahayana Buddhism, setting the stage for future conflicts over religious and cultural identity. Consequences and response reshaped what decision-makers could do next, because each institutional response changed the incentives facing the next actor. Adoption of Theravada Buddhism by the Ayutthaya Kingdom appealed to regional leaders seeking a personal, non-collectivist understanding of Buddhist texts. The emphasis on personal responsibility and spiritual autonomy allowed for greater flexibility in governance, adapting to regional dynamics. This strategic advantage likely influenced the kingdom's leaders to promote Theravada as a unifying force, transcending ethnic differences. Ayutthaya's decisions carried weighty repercussions, shaping how later leaders balanced religious and secular authority. The spread of Theravada Buddhism in the region created new social hierarchies, with monks and lay leaders holding greater influence over local communities. Monastic education centers emerged as centers of learning and culture, producing a new class of educated elites who would shape the kingdom's politics and society for generations to come. As the Ayutthaya Kingdom consolidated its power, Theravada's emphasis on individual interpretation led to tensions with neighboring kingdoms that adhered to Mahayana Buddhism, setting the stage for future conflicts over religious and cultural identity. The Burmese Empire, a major regional power, saw the Ayutthaya Kingdom's adoption of Theravada as a threat to its own influence and began to promote Mahayana Buddhism in its territories, leading to a series of wars over religious and cultural supremacy. The kingdom's leaders responded by strengthening their military and diplomatic ties with other Theravada kingdoms, creating a network of alliances that would help them navigate the complex web of regional relationships. This new system of governance was shaped by the principles of Theravada Buddhism, which emphasized personal responsibility and spiritual autonomy, allowing for greater flexibility in decision-making and adaptation to changing circumstances. Ayutthaya's decisions had profound effects on its successors, molding their approaches to balancing spiritual and secular authority. The Ayutthaya Kingdom's emphasis on Theravada Buddhism led to increased tensions with neighboring kingdoms that adhered to Mahayana Buddhism. As the Ayutthaya Kingdom consolidated its power, tensions arose with the Burmese Empire, which saw the Ayutthaya Kingdom's adoption of Theravada as a threat to its own influence. The Burmese Empire responded by promoting Mahayana Buddhism in its territories, leading to a series of wars over religious and cultural supremacy. Ayutthaya forged robust military and diplomatic bonds with neighboring Theravada realms, forming a cohesive alliance system to facilitate their maneuver through Southeast Asia's intricate politics. The kingdom's leaders struggled to balance the competing demands of their Buddhist advisors, who urged caution in dealing with neighboring kingdoms, and their military commanders, who advocated for a more aggressive approach. As the kingdom's power grew, so did its internal conflicts. The tension between the Theravada and Mahayana traditions created divisions within the royal court, with some officials advocating for greater accommodation of the Burmese Empire's influence. Ayutthaya's rulers faced growing pains as Buddhism spread, generating wealth that sparked tensions between nobility and emerging middle-class merchants. The kingdom's reliance on Theravada Buddhism created a sense of complacency among its leaders, leading to risk blindness as they navigated the increasingly complex web of regional relationships. As trade and commerce flourished, new social classes emerged, creating tensions between the traditional aristocracy and the rising middle class. The kingdom's internal conflicts eventually led to a weakening of its military, allowing the Burmese Empire to gain the upper hand in their series of wars. Ayutthaya's downfall signaled a major upheaval in regional dominance, paving the way for the Burmese Empire to assert its authority. However, the Ayutthaya Kingdom's legacy lived on through its cultural and religious contributions, shaping the course of regional politics for centuries to come. In recent years, historians have re-evaluated the Ayutthaya Kingdom's significance, recognizing its role in promoting Theravada Buddhism and its impact on regional relationships. This new understanding has led to a greater appreciation for the complex interplay between faith and power in shaping the kingdom's decisions and actions. Ayutthaya's legacy illustrates how cultural and spiritual heritage shapes governance and social dynamics, underscoring the importance of thoughtful interpretation. The tension between the Theravada and Mahayana traditions was further exacerbated by the influence of foreign monks, who often brought with them new ideas and practices that challenged local customs. Some officials within the royal court saw an opportunity to exploit this divide for their own gain, using it as a pretext to consolidate power or gain favor with influential patrons. The increasing wealth generated by trade and commerce also led to a rise in corruption among government officials, who used their positions to embezzle funds and amass personal fortunes. As the Ayutthaya Kingdom's military weakened, regional leaders began to question its ability to maintain stability and security in the region, leading some to seek alliances with other powers or even challenge its dominance directly. The Burmese Empire's success in defeating the Ayutthaya Kingdom was not solely due to its own military prowess, but also because of a complex web of diplomatic maneuvering and strategic alliances that had been built up over decades. Historians have argued that the Ayutthaya Kingdom's failure to adapt to changing regional dynamics and respond effectively to the rise of new powers was a critical factor in its decline, rather than simply a result of external pressures or internal decay. Ayutthaya's cultural and religious heritage was complicated by foreign trade and commerce, which thrived due to its prime location on the Chao Phraya River, a major hub for maritime exchange between China, India, and Southeast Asia. This influx of wealth and ideas had a profound impact on the kingdom's institutions, leading to the establishment of new trade agreements, commercial treaties, and even the creation of a separate administrative body to oversee foreign commerce. However, this growth in trade also brought with it increased corruption among government officials, who used their positions to embezzle funds and amass personal fortunes. As the kingdom's wealth grew, so did its bureaucracy, leading to a complex web of patronage and clientelism that further eroded the already fragile relationship between the royal court and regional leaders. The increasing power of regional leaders also led to a decline in the centralized authority of the Ayutthaya Kingdom, as local elites began to assert their own independence and challenge the kingdom's dominance. The consequences of the Ayutthaya Kingdom's decline were far-reaching, with many regions experiencing significant social, economic, and cultural upheaval. The loss of trade and commerce opportunities led to a sharp decline in revenue for local communities, exacerbating existing poverty and inequality. Regional leaders who had previously been loyal to the Ayutthaya Kingdom began to question their allegiance, leading to a fragmentation of power and a breakdown in regional stability. In response to these challenges, regional leaders such as Prince Ramsuan, a cousin of King Ramathibodi III, emerged as key players in shaping the kingdom's future. He formed an alliance with neighboring kingdoms to counterbalance the growing influence of the Burmese Empire. However, this fragmentation of power also created opportunities for external powers to intervene and exert their own influence over the region. The Portuguese, who had established a foothold in the Malay Peninsula, began to make overtures to regional leaders, offering trade agreements and military support in exchange for loyalty and cooperation. The Burmese Empire, sensing an opportunity to expand its territory, launched a series of military campaigns against the Ayutthaya Kingdom. The kingdom's weakened defenses were no match for the Burmese army's superior firepower and tactics. Regional leaders such as Prince Ramsuan were caught in the middle, struggling to maintain their independence while fending off external threats from both the Burmese and Portuguese. As the kingdom's power continued to wane, internal conflicts between rival factions grew more intense. The once unified royal court was now plagued by infighting, with different clans vying for control of the throne. The increasing instability and fragmentation of power led to a decline in trade and commerce, further exacerbating poverty and inequality throughout the region. Regional leaders were forced to make difficult choices, often sacrificing their loyalty to the Ayutthaya Kingdom in order to secure alliances with external powers or protect their own interests. This created a toxic environment where regional stability was constantly threatened by competing demands from local elites, foreign powers, and the kingdom's own internal politics. Thanks for listening to Underwire History. Look forward to seeing you next time.